To the Science to People podcast, where we turn cutting edge science into information that's discoverable, understandable, and actionable. I'm your host, Brandy Murphy Reuter. Today's guest is someone who has made a career out of studying curiosity. Dr. Goren Gordon is an associate professor at Indiana University's Luddy School of Informatics, Computing, and Engineering, and head of the Curiosity Lab, which is so cool. With 6 academic degrees that span physics, neurobiology, and business, he designs, builds, and programs social robots that can help children develop curiosity, collaboration, and communication skills. His research also explores group dynamics and what he calls quantum curiosity. So how does that translate? Let's find out. Dr. Gordon, welcome to the Science to People podcast. Gordon, welcome to the Science to People podcast.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited to see you again. We haven't talked in over a year since you moved from Israel to Indiana.
Yes. So Indiana, Bloomington. Continuing my research here in the US.
It's so amazing. Well, we're very lucky to have you. I became absolutely obsessed with your work through some AI and kid research that I was doing last year, where I got really interested in figuring out or trying to even think about what type of implications we might have in little kids interacting with AI from a young age. And I was recommended to you because of your work with social robots and little kids. You're just doing awesome stuff. So thank you so much for being here today and telling us a little bit about it.
Thank you.
I'm so excited. So we always start our podcast here with kind of the coffee shop question, which is like, if we're stuck in a long line at a coffee shop and I said, hey, person in front of me, what do you do? How would you describe your work?
So I'm trying to, it's hard. So I'm trying to bring technology to the education system and bring pedagogy in the form of social robots, which are robots that play and interact with kids. And there's a lot of good pedagogy out there, how to promote curiosity, how to promote growth mindset, to promote collaboration and communication and all of these good stuff. And sometimes these pedagogies just don't get to the kids. And now we have this amazing technology with social robots and AI. And I want to bring it to as many kids as we can in all the world and just give access to children to pedagogy and technology that they usually don't have. So to just get the most of what we know about education.
That's really cool. What is pedagogy?
So pedagogy is a way to teach things so you have a good way to promote curiosity and not a good way to promote curiosity. It's a good way to teach math and maybe a less better way to teach math. And pedagogy is how you do that in the classroom with, active learning and asking questions and stuff like that. There's the right way to actually teach things. And we have a lot of knowledge in education how to do that. I mean, I'm not developing some of them, but there are a lot of people who are promoting and developing these kind of things. And I want to give it access to all the kids that sometimes do not have access to.
I just love this mission because there is so much technology out there. We're learning more and more every day about the crazy technology being made available to the public or not being made available, being made available to the public. And I'm curious what this getting out there looks like for you. So you're doing research in a lab, or you're building robots and then you're giving them to people and seeing how they do with it in their home or in their school. And then where does that go?
So I really believe there's a lot of hype now in AI and chatbots and all of these kind of things. My biggest problem with all of this type of technology is that it's more screen time, because all these children again are sitting again next to screens and more apps and more chatbots and more stuff like that. And something is very missing from this, which is the social component. And we know again from education research that children learn better in a social environment with their peers, with other people, with other agents. But there's a lot of things about this social and physical presence that you look into your eye and you move, and there's a joint attention. Like we attend to the same thing in the same space together with someone, and you get these facial expressions of people. I'm smiling, I'm not looking at you, I'm looking at you. There's a lot of things around this that promote learning and promote motivation and curiosity, and it's missing from these chatbots. So they may have access to infinite knowledge, but in the learning process, there is something very social. We are social species, and it's something very important. And what I'm trying to do is to connect the two. So I'm using social robots. Social robots are robots that interact with a social perspective. All my robots, there are other robots that are out there. My robots usually have a face. So it's a screen for a face, so you can see your eyes, and they're smiling, and they're looking, and they're sad. They can do a lot of facial expressions.
Kind of
Also,
like I think of, well, it's not a robot, but for some reason that the Pixar lamp, I feel like it has a face, even though I know it's just a light bulb.
so
But like, I feel emotion from it.
yeah, so there's a group a theme in robot interaction where you abstract the humanoid out of it. So the Pixar lamp is like a epitome of it. Is that uh, it looks like nothing like human. To attribute,
So when you say abstract, you mean like remove
yeah,
anything that?
remove. So
Okay.
you don't have faces, you don't have hands, you don't have eyes, you don't have all of these features that make us look like human. But you still can understand the emotions of it. So there's emotion from motion category where just by moving, you can convey emotions out of it. So that's what Pixar did amazingly. And there are other people who do that. And there are also robots, social robots that just have no humanoid features whatsoever. But you can still, just from the lights and beeps and motions of it, you totally understand what they're feeling, what they're feeling they're trying to convey it or to express. So there's the other extreme where you have androids, which are robots that look exactly like human, like even with the skins and all the things, and it looks like totally human.
What?
Yeah. So they're not perfect human, but they're like not that far.
Any day now, I'm sure.
So probably they're
Yeah.
among us and we don't know. No, I'm just kidding. They're not among us because it's a science place. Then no, they're not among us, but they're really advancing to the place where they have these facial expressions that are so humanoid. That's crazy. So I'm in the middle. I'm using like small robots, like tabletop robot. They're not big. They're like yay high.
Okay, like the size of a pug, or like the size of a Yorkshire Terrier.
They're size of a small child, or like a 4-year-old or 3-year-old, like so.
Okay,
Yes.
okay.
If you want, I'll show one of them.
Yeah, show
I'll
me.
show one of them. So this is one
So
of
for
them.
anybody who's listening, oh my gosh, this is a very cute robot. It's white with these two little arms. And it has a big black screen head.
Yeah. So the screen actually shows the face. I didn't turn it on yet, but it's a face.
It's okay. It kind of looks like a robot if Apple made a cute buddy.
Yeah, something like that.
Right. Okay.
I'll talk about this robot later, but that's the point of it, that it has a screen for a face, so it can both show facial expressions, but also because we're talking about education, sometimes you need to show something, to teach something, you need to show something, like a picture or something, or a small short video, or some animation or something. So you can also use it that way, but it's not a screen where children just, stare at the screen. So it's more for the face, and it also has hands, and it can move, it can dance, it can point, it can make gestures. So it's a lot about this kind of again social interaction with the child, that you can again have like a rapport, like a connection, an intimate connection between the child and the robot. And again, the point is not the connection. The point is again education, but just children learn more when they have this kind of social interaction with this kind of agent. So this is something that is very, very important for me, this kind of social interaction. And I'm taking it also to the next level, which is, again, from education. It's very well known that the best way to learn most of the time is with your peers, a small group of your peers. So it's not one-on-one. This can be like very personalized, but it's not the best way to learn. The best way is like a small group, 3 or 4 kids, and they have a project and they're learning together and they're interacting together, and it's very, very good. The problem with that is that sometimes they go off topic. Not sometimes. There are studies to show that they mostly go off topic if there's no guidance. If there's no
guidance, right?
Yeah, if there's no facility.
And these kids, right. So these kids are sitting in classrooms with one teacher, 25, 30 students.
Yeah.
They're in groups, 10 groups of 3.
Yeah, something like that.
The teacher can only get to each group maybe 1 or 2 minutes per class period. So, okay, so they're doing a lot of chatting about whatever, and also not necessarily a lot of learning.
And also they don't have, obviously, because they're children, they don't have, the good pedagogy, which we used before, how to interact with a group. Sometimes one child will dominate the conversation, another one will be quiet. And there are ways to do like a really good group interaction, and children just don't know it because no one taught them and they didn't practice it. And also, the problem is sometimes also teachers are not the best group facilitators because they didn't get it. You didn't get the training. They didn't practice it. It's not, the top of their skills and their accomplishment just because, again, it's not their fault. That's not their job to be a really good group facilitator. It's a whole skill. It's called a whole skill set. So what
a whole other area of education
Yeah,
that
exactly.
a lot of teachers, especially I would imagine teachers of younger children, aren't necessarily taught
Yeah.
in teacher training.
And also if they're taught, after 10 years of it's very hard. And again, you also have all these other kids, so it's very hard to give the attention to this group in the right way and stuff like that. So what I'm trying to do is to get all this pedagogy, all these good practices of how to be a good facilitator. And we actually took someone who teaches group facilitators the course of group facilitation, and we just taught the robot. So every class of that teacher, we just programmed what they said. If someone is speaking too much, say to them, "Oh, that's very nice. Let's hear other people." And if someone is not speaking, what do you think? You address that person. And there's a lot of, again, good practices how to manage a group interaction, collaboration. And we programmed all of that into the robots. And now what we're trying to do is we want to have this robot with a small group of children, 3 or 4 children, and to have this kind of interaction between them. And again, they're learning. There is a classroom activity that they need to do, but now it's facilitated by the robot. So the robot is also not the teacher. It can maybe answer questions and shows them some stuff, but it's not the teacher. It's more about how you do this kind of social dynamics that is so important for learning together. And now, obviously, with all the advent of AI, you can just put, ChatGPT on top of it. And it can also answer most of the questions or much more interaction. When I started, it was 5 years ago. We didn't have that kind of thing. So we had only this kind of like a group dynamics, and now we can add a lot of content into it.
And so with the content, though, are you thinking about how much access to external knowledge you want kids to have in school or in these small groups or otherwise? Because I can easily imagine this robot becoming a commercial product, like something that people want their kids to have in their house as a tutor or a buddy or what. I mean, it's super cute. I have a 4-year-old and a 5.5-year-old. I would love one of those.
Yeah.
Well, we will take one off your hands. But how do you think about kind of what you've put into the robot or what it's allowed to give out?
So I'll put a small disclaimer. The robot that I showed you is my startup's robot. So I'm also like a co-founder and a chief science officer of Curiosity Robotics.
Cool.
This robot we're not building it, but we're putting the AI on top of it. And this robot is meant to teach English as a second language for 5 to 6-year-olds in the East, in Japan. So we now are selling in Japan and Korea and Taiwan.
Wow.
And the question you ask is super, super crazy important. What is the actual content that this robot is delivering? Because just giving access to ChatGPT is no good, because you don't want children to start, talking about whatever. That's not a good thing. So what we actually did is we collaborated. So one of our co-founders is Helen Doron, School of Education, and she is a conglomerate at 1,000 centers around the world. And she has 4 decades experience of teaching English. So she has a lot of content. What are the songs, how to put it out, the pedagogy of how you actually teach English. And what we're doing, we're converting her style and her pedagogy to the robot. So now instead of getting a personal teacher that has all this experience, you're getting a robot that has all this experience and all this content. And we're very meticulously curating, selecting which content goes inside and which doesn't, based on the age group and based on and the sequence of things and what you learn first, what you learn second. So all the content is very, very in control of us educators and not by ChatGPT or some other third-party thing. So the content is key to this kind of education because, again, you don't want free access for children with no railguards and no safety margin. You want control, especially for kids this age. You want control over what they're listening and what they're learning and what they have interaction. So one way is to actually, again, have this company selects the content. I have another solution, which I'm doing with my other robots, which I'll talk in a second. I'll show you also the second one.
I see the other one. Yeah.
I'll show you that one. See? Okay, so this is my newest robot.
Okay, so this one is kind of pink, red, purple. It has funny little cute ears. It has a flat screen. It's not as round and kind of curvy as the other one. This one is so cute too. And is
So
that a microphone?
it's a microphone and a speaker and a camera and a screen. It has everything you need. The special thing about this robot, it's all 3D printed, all of it.
Wow.
And all the electronics of it costs less than $300. So you can have a full robot by yourself for less than $300. So that's what I'm developing now. It's called GG because I like the word.
GG. Yeah.
And the concept here, which I'm now advocating and trying to promote in Indiana, is to have this kind of robot that students in high school or even middle school can build by themselves. So we're putting, again, following your lead, open sourcing and doing stuff like that. So we have
You're bringing science to people.
yeah, exactly.
Amazing.
So we're democratizing social robots for education. So we're doing we're now in the developing, it's just in the beginning. So we're now developing like a curriculum around it, how to learn robotics and learn human robot interaction and learn all of this kind of stuff while building the robot. And what's important about the content that I talked before is that I really believe we just had a paper presented in a conference a month ago about what I called socially sustainable human-robot interaction, and I'll explain for underrepresented communities. So we have a lot of research about human-robot interaction, a lot of really cool robots and really cool science and all of this kind of stuff. But the robots usually are super expensive. And in order to program them, you need to be a programmer. And in order to do anything with them, you need have a technical skills. And it's very hard for underrepresented communities to have access to this kind of both knowledge and technology. So what I'm trying to do and what I advocated for in that paper and what I'm trying to do now is to have a robot that is both affordable and can be built by the community, maintained by the community, and operated by the community. So the whole point of it is that now what we're doing now is, and now I'm coming back to the content, we're also doing this no code programming of the robot, where educators, local educators from the community can just generate an activity for the children in like a text-based, like a Google form or text-based. I want the robot to do that and show that and pretend that, and that automatically converts to the robot.
So cool.
And now the robot, you could just say, the robot asks, which activity do you want now? So I want to have a Lego-based STEM activity. And because you prepare it, it will just run this activity in class. So you don't need to know how to program. You don't need to know anything. It can be run and maintained by the community. And also the content can be done by the community because each community has their own thing, right? Each community wants to emphasize specific, unique topics in that classroom. Yep.
So it maintains the kind of cultural relevance, right?
Exactly.
Like if you're able to not just teach to a hard and fast curriculum that it comes down from the top, from somewhere in the government or the district or whatever, like if you're able to teach to what the kids are seeing on a day-to-day basis in their lives, it makes it a lot more relevant for them. They're going to be a lot more interested in what they're learning. And if this cute little pink and green robot is helping to introduce those concepts. And then the teacher is I'm imagining this now, right? They're roaming around the room. You've got like a robot within each small group. Yeah. Is this kind of how you're seeing
That's
it?
My vision, yeah.
And so the teacher's like checking in. The teacher introduces the activity. The teacher kind of moderates, okay, who's slacking off, who needs to go to the bathroom, whatever. But the robot is facilitating. That allows the kids to probably learn from each other a lot better
That's
too,
the point.
right?
So
they can help each other and work through problems.
Yeah, there are several things about this setup that we just tried. One of them is exactly what you said lastly, that usually the robot doesn't ask questions for the children to answer the robot. It's like, tell your friends what do you think about something. It's more about communication and collaboration between the children. I mean, my dream vision of, if everything works well, is that you have these facilitators throughout the entire year, and then you take the facilitator out because the children already know and learned from the robot how to interact in the group, how to share, how to listen to everybody, how to have these really good dynamics. I mean, I don't want them to be dependent on the robot. I want the robot to teach them how to do a really good group collaborative activity. So that's my, dream in the end what I'm envisioning in the
Yeah.
end. I mean, the whole point of everything I'm doing is also all my curiosity research and all the other stuff is that to teach, to help a human be more human, right? It's like we want all these human soft skills, like again, collaboration and curiosity and growth mindset. We had a study on that. So it's all the point is that it's not about the robot, it's about the child. And we want to teach and promote the child how to be more of these amazing qualities that, again, we know they can from education studies, but they need teachers or educators one-on-one or in a group to all the time to like help them be them the best selves. And now the robot is just facilitating that. And again, I have to say something because everybody now will say, oh my God, teachers. So if I'm always saying that the best solution is a really good teacher. Like the best
A
solution,
person, a real, like human teacher.
yeah, the best solution is always a human teacher, a human good teacher and everything. But as everybody know, and again, in the US, it's a huge problem. In Indiana, even worse, there are just no teachers. It's a huge gap, and like there's missing tons of teachers, especially for specific topics, for STEM and for language. They're just missing. The robot is not replacing; it's just augmenting. But it's just missing a lot of personnel.
Right.
So now, if you
Right.
can have a $300 robot that can just help in the classroom, again, the teacher is
Right.
there, but just help in the classroom and deliver pedagogy that maybe the teacher just doesn't know. It wasn't trained on STEM education at that point. So the robot can do that. And it's more like I'm promoting it as a teaching assistant for the teacher. It's not a teacher. It's not even a tutor. It's like a teaching assistant. It helps in the classroom with the teacher. And one way to show that is that we also had this kind of dashboard. So the teacher gets in the end, because the robot, it listens to all the children and it looks at them and it knows who's engaging and who's answering and everything. They get a dashboard in the end, who was engaged, who answered, who needs help. Also, a little bit about the group dynamic. If someone is fighting with someone else, there's a lot of information that the teachers can get, so that next time there'll be better groups. If someone is having difficulties, they can address that, even if they weren't there, because they get some information from the robot that was there. So it gives a lot of information for the teacher to be actionable about, to actually just, help the children that need more help, even if they weren't
That's
there.
that's fascinating. Do you get many questions from parents or schools who are thinking about, kind of these types of products about privacy or like, was it
Excellent
recording my
question.
kid? Like,
Excellent.
how are you
So,
tackling that?
yeah, so I'll tell you, from Gigi, my newest robot, does not talk to the internet at all. So because of these kind of issues, and also because I can't count on school's Wi-Fi, so we have a huge technical limitation of this small computer to have all of these smarts in the small computer. So that's what we're trying to tackle now. It's so not easy.
Well, yeah, and if teachers are going to be able to program it from afar, you'd think it would have to fly through the internet,
No,
whatever
but
that is,
the important
and
thing,
right?
that and people are concerned about is the robot has a camera and a microphone. And usually most robots send that to ChatGPT or third parties to get some access to their facial expression, what they're saying, what you need to say. And then suddenly, okay, so suddenly there's videos and audios of my children floating around on the cloud. So I'm not doing that. All the processing of the interaction and the group activity is done on the robot. If you want to upload a new activity, you can do that via the internet. There is an internet connectivity. You can connect to it. But the processing is done on the robot, because I know it's a huge problem. So
Yeah,
everything is on the robot. Nothing gets out from your child's interaction with the thing. If you want to have and then what the robot can convey to the teacher is, again, in the end, they do an activity. Even without a robot, the teacher needs to know what the child is doing or not doing. I mean, that's the role of the teacher, right? The teacher needs to know these
yeah,
kind
they
of things
they need to know what's happening in their
in the
classroom, and if
classroom.
they don't
Exactly.
have eyes on it necessarily, which they don't, right?
Yeah.
Even though there's a lot of headlines out there about online bullying
Yeah.
and, kids feeling unsafe. Ultimately, kids still feel unsafe in school. Teachers' eyes aren't on them in those small groups. Administrators' eyes aren't on them. So if you have this robot facilitator, it might actually be able to improve student kind of psychological
Yeah.
safety
Yeah.
in school
Mm-hmm.
or well-being.
Yeah. Exactly. So it's an amazing new world out there, because we have this kind of technology that is now it's more accessible. That's the most important thing for me. Like, it's more accessible for people. But again, I really feel that, you see all these kind of robots coming out there, they're still high end, and we know who's going to get access to them. And there are all these other, again, children that just don't get any access to this kind of technology, mostly because it's too expensive and too requiring technical skill. I mean, you still need to know a lot of technical skills to actually operate all these kind of technologies. Even if they're meant for the education system, you still need to have this kind of technical IT person in the school to do this kind of stuff. So we want them to actually be able to build their own robots. And then, you have no dependence on another community administrator, I don't know, something outside of your community. You can actually do everything by yourself. And that's something I'm promoting now.
Yeah. And it's a really incredible mission and really fascinating science. You're not only building these things and, thinking that it's going to be this cool intervention for schools, like you're testing it,
Yes,
you're
definitely.
proving it out, you're seeing what works, what doesn't work, what
Definitely.
might be a null hypothesis, right? Something that like
Yeah.
you're like, I thought this was going to be a thing, but it's not a thing.
I can
So
tell you like some anecdotal things. So we had one study, we compared like a really cool robot, $10,000 robot to my like a $300 robot. Obviously, everybody like enjoyed the more fancy ones, but learning was exactly the same. So you don't need a fancy robot to learn better. But what happened
okay,
is that because
way you don't need a fancy robot to learn better. I
yeah,
like that.
yeah, because you don't, because in the end it's all about the interaction, and it doesn't need to be like super sophisticated, super cool looking. It's not important for learning. It's actually sometimes distracting from learning, which you also saw. We also saw that in some papers that because it's so novel and so cute, and so it actually distracts you from learning. So that's why all my studies are long term. So because we have this amazing, this really big, novelty effect, you just put a robot in school, everybody would be, it's amazing, it's amazing. But you actually need to wait for like a week or two, even a month, to actually see whether it actually had a learning impact. So, for example, with
Kind
what,
of like an adult when they get a new Apple
yeah,
Watch or
yeah,
something. It's like, ooh,
exactly.
it's so fun. Look at all my steps. And then like a couple of weeks
Yeah,
later, you're not
yeah, no one
walking
cares.
anymore. Yeah.
So
Nobody cares.
children are also like that. So what we did with this in that kind of paper, so we put this kind of, again, a very affordable robot um, for like 4 weeks in schools. Every day, they interact with it and learn from it. And again, the learning aids were amazing. The content was really good, but it was also, it was part of their routine. Like, they had like a couple, like 20 or 30 minutes a day with this kind of robot, and they learned a lot from it. And once it's like, it was operated by by their teachers, and it was within the school time and school physical, building. It was part of the routine. And then we can see that it's actually working, and it's like really, really cool. It's very exciting.
Oh, that's amazing. And so if you have these scientific projects, these robots that I would imagine if somebody started filming videos of this, whatever, it would go viral, right? It's really also super topical. People are all about robots and AI right now. But yet it's a scientific endeavor. You're doing this intense measurement. You're trying to actually move the needle on the way that kids learn. How do you hope that the science remains front and center and doesn't get overshadowed by these like robot in school headlines? Do you think about that much?
So yes, there are two types of science in my kind of work. One is the technological, how to actually, make everything work, and it's like very, making the AI work, making all of it like on a small computer. There's a lot of like a more engineering, let's call it more even engineering questions. The other thing is how you actually teach with this kind of robots, because it's not trivial. Like, the science of teaching or science of learning, because there are, again, best practices, but with a robot, it's suddenly you can do other things you couldn't do with like a teacher, because it has a screen on its face, and you can do a lot of other things. And there are things you cannot do because it doesn't really understand everything or the nuances of small interactions or small expressions and stuff like that. So there's a lot of science about how to make all of this work together, the technology and the actual, teaching children in the end, and what works and what doesn't work in small groups, one-on-one. There's a lot of big questions here. But I'm actually not against the headlines now, because I'm coming to the point where I want to scale. I want for it to be bigger. So I have the science. I have like a decade of science showing these robots are actually really good at promoting all of these amazing soft skills and teaching. And now I'm trying to get out of the laboratory and out of the academia. So again, we have these like two branches. One of them is the startup, which is one way to do it. The other one is like open sourcing everything so that other people can do it by themselves. And these are my two branches that I'm trying. The viral video, I'm on it, but I'm not good at that thing. So maybe you can help me later.
Maybe we can help you with that.
Maybe that's what's missing.
Yeah. The virality of this concept is, I think I can only imagine how many cute videos you have of kids seeing and interacting with these robots. I'm curious if you, in all these 10 years that you've been working on this, if you've tested or looked at what could go wrong. Like if we have these, because I see the potential and I'm so excited about the potential. And I love the idea of this in a school. I do. I think where I start to feel nervous is when it comes into my home, when it becomes more than this facilitator tool that you're talking about, this really valuable tool. So, and I could see the slippery slope of somebody seeing your work, your thoughtfulness, these beautiful, fun, helpful tools that you've built with purpose and saying, oh, yeah, I can make that. And we're going to put it in every kid's bedroom in the US. And it's going to be their new BFF bestie. My daughter would love this. My son would love this. I've got little kids. So I think a lot about this, about stuff in our home, right? And it's not all bad, but I'm curious, like if these robots are as engaging and they can really prompt people to do different things, what's the dark side of that, Dr. Goren? Like, what do you...
Yeah, so I'll tell you, it's like, fortunately, we're not there yet where they can actually be that good to be the replacement for like other children or whatever. They're just not that good, fortunately.
Right.
But again, I see, first of all, there are a lot of research out there about the bad things of screens and screen time, especially for young kids. So I'm still targeting young kids, but because it's a physical and social interaction, I'm trying to alleviate the screen problem. It's a 3D space and not a flat screen. It has social interaction, and we actually have a study that shows that when children interact with a robot as compared to a tablet, they express themselves more. So it's like, it's very important, the social aspect of it, both from the robot, but obviously more from the child's perspective. So we're trying to take care of that. There are like two or three things that can go wrong. One of them is obviously, again, privacy. Privacy is a huge issue. I'm not a cyber person. That can be solved not by me, but other people. But I am, again, as I told you, very conscious of
You're
it.
focused on it.
Focused on it. So that's why my robot is like, no, I know it's solvable, but let's just not have that problem at all. So that's my way of solving it. So privacy is huge. The other thing is that, it's like a substitute. There's a lot of also these AI companions today.
Yes.
That suddenly people talk to them more to their friends. And I saw some study, like not a scientific study, but from one of the company studies that, part of the people say they don't want to talk to other people anymore because the AI is like filling that gap. And other people, I talk to people much better because I'm practicing on this AI companion. And now I'm a better person to other people because so there's a lot of different things here. I don't think social robots, again, the social robots I'm aiming for are very targeted for like this kind of specific things to teach. So there was a big hype almost a decade ago, like these social robots that came in, a lot of like really commercial robots. Their problem was
I think I saw them.
The biggest problem was they're just, okay, here's the robot, go. They didn't solve a specific problem, and every product has to solve a specific problem. You can't just be everything. So for example, in our startup, we solve, English as a second language. You can't play with it. You can't do whatever you want with it. It teaches you English. So you play with it. It's very nice and it's very fun, but it won't be your best friend now. Again, you love it and it will be amazing and it will be, you will want to play with it, but it won't be your best friend. It's not, instead of running around with your other friends playing or with your parents, it's just totally not a substitute. It will never be a substitute because we're designing it to teach something that you want to learn in a fun way that your parents want you to learn in a very fun way. And that's it. So it's that role. I don't see, again, in our product and in our things, I don't see it like, overshadowing other human beings, whatever. I can totally see
the displacement, you're not seeing it coming up in your research. You're not seeing any social problems or development problems in the kids that are using it.
No, again, no one has yet to have a social robot in the home for like, a year or two, constantly being used to see what's going to happen. We just don't have the data. I mean, we can speculate for good or bad, We literally do not have the data. And if someone else tells you it's all good, they're lying. If someone tells you it's all bad, they're lying. We just literally do not have the data. No one has ever put a social robot in a kid's home and studied it for a year. We're going to try. It's new. We just don't know.
I appreciate that because I think that that's probably one of the bigger problems with science right now is that like science historically has been very reluctant to say we don't know something, I think. And like, I really appreciate you saying we just don't know.
No, we have no idea.
But yeah, but the product that you're building is that you're saying it's for a very clear purpose in a very clear space and environment. And it's not to be brought into your kid's bedroom for a year. It wouldn't work for that.
I will say something that is very super interesting because I'm getting a lot of questions about whether a robot is better than a human teacher. It's a very, very highly controversial question. I have a lot of answers.
People are anxious about this.
I know.
I think this is a big topic because people want to know not only do teachers still matter? Should we keep training teachers? Yeah. Obviously, we already talked about there being a lack of available teachers and high quality teachers. But I do think that there's still this fear of turning over your kid's education to something non-human. So I'm curious. I want to know.
So first of all, again, as I said before, I will always say it. The best thing is a really good human teacher. I mean, that can change your child's life for the better in so many ways. Each one of us has that teacher, that you remember for your life, that, impacted your life. And no robot can ever duplicate that. And that's not going to happen. Obviously, if you have a really bad teacher, because let's admit it, there are some bad teachers out there. So sometimes a good robot can be better than a bad teacher in some circumstances. It's still not human. It still can't deal with a lot of human complexities. But sometimes for teaching things, then a good robot can be better than a bad human teacher. There is something very interesting, one specific place where the robot is better than any human teacher, which is something so interesting. We saw that in our studies and other people saw it also, is that children say they feel more comfortable with a robot because it's not judgmental and it's not biased and it's not all of these things that a teacher cannot, they can't just not be judgmental at all or not be, because it's an adult, it's a human, you just can't, turn it off. And for the robot, so I'll tell a small anecdote. We had this, it wasn't with the robot, it was an avatar in Zoom, but it was the same thing that I interviewed the children, after the interaction, and one child did not say anything, while I interviewed them, and I asked why, and his friend said, he's very shy, and I asked, was he shy also with the robot? And he said, no. Why would we be shy with a robot? And we saw that in the many it's repeatable in many studies that they just feel more open and more themselves when there's no, human supervision as a teacher or as an outsider. That's super interesting because the robot
something so beautiful and sad about that, though, isn't there? It's something so beautiful and sad. My daughter is quite shy, and I think she would love a robot companion or a robot facilitator. Like, there's a lot of situations where even at 5.5, she's just not going to speak up. And we're trying to facilitate, her growth and development in that area. We're trying to teach her growth mindset and grit and resilience. And, even if she's an introvert, trying to help her come out of her shell. But we're also not around her all the time. She spends more time in school during the week than with us. And that's a bummer. But it would be incredible to have something to help her foster these skills.
Again, like we saw in the group, there's always someone who speaks less. And suddenly, the robot, addresses them. Again, if they don't want to talk, you won't push, but they give them the floor when sometimes they don't get it because the other people are just taking it. So it gives like the place for everybody. And again, it's so non-judgmental. I mean, for example, when we had this robot that facilitates a group activity for adults, and at some point, we probably say, "You, why do we sing?" And everybody knew the robot was not picking on that person because he hates them, because he doesn't like them, or because they're their favorite. No, there's no bias. There's no algorithm there that says address that person. And there's no malice of bad things or bad or good things from the teacher towards that person, and they know it. And that suddenly, alleviates a lot, just removes a lot of these kind of stressful group situation, social situation, because it's not against you. It's totally objective. It's a robot. It's totally objective. And there's something there's something not good about it, because you want the human touch and you want the human interaction, but it's also something very important in this kind of a place where you want people to open up. You want people to be active and collaborate and communicate, and, no stressful from top down. It's very crazy. There are also some studies that show that when you have a robot in a position that looks at someone working, they're also stressed as if there's a person. Like, so there's a robot in the role of supervisor, then they also feel stressed. It's not just a person. But in our scenario, the robot is either a peer or a tutor or someone that it's there for you. It's not judging you. It's not, giving you grade because the teacher gives you grade. The robot doesn't give you grade. So the teacher will give you grade based on what you did. And it's beautiful. I don't think it's sad. I think it's very nice that we suddenly have this kind of option, because before we never had that option of communicating with a person without being a person, right? I think maybe that's the way which is very unique in this time and age, that we can do that and take the benefit out of it, and overcome all the obstacles, but take all the benefits you can get out of it. And that's something amazing.
It is amazing. And it's happening so rapidly. We just spent our entire conversation talking just about your work with social robots.
Yeah.
I want to have a second conversation about your work in curiosity, your new work with fun, quantifying fun and predicting. I want to talk so much more with you, and I'd love to grab more time. I think that what I want to end with today is fast forwarding 10 years. In your ideal world, how will social robots have shaped classrooms, individuals, workplaces? What's your view for that? What's your ideal outcome?
So I think, again, barring any other changes in society, given the current state in society, but just giving 10 years of robots, is that you have like 5 robots in a classroom, like an army of TAs, of teaching assistants. And, sometimes one of the robots is one-on-one because that child needs, personalized tutoring. And then the other robots are in groups that facilitate this group activity. The teacher is always there, giving like specific human attention to the children who needs more. And in the end of the day, they have this kind of report of who needs more attention next time from me, from the human teacher. But everybody else gets the best education, the best content, because, for example, the content is not made by that teacher, it's made by the best teachers in the country that makes these activities for the robots. So all the activities for all the children are the best activities, the best pedagogies, again, and also always promoting these kind of soft skills that we now finally all know that is actually what's important, and not, your grades. To have this growth mindset and collaboration is so huge, and it's so important for everyday life and the workforce and everything, to foster this kind of collaboration by having the best way to teach how to do that. I don't know, you have a new way to teach the growth mindset. In order for this to reach classroom, you need to educate all the teachers. It just takes huge amount of time and effort. I mean, we need to do that, but it's so hard. And with a robot,
it's so hard.
So hard.
Yeah, the scale
I know.
of that.
But with a robot, you press
out
update.
New concepts.
You press update, and suddenly it can promote growth mindset, right? That's the point.
Right.
So you can have all of these kind of things. So I see the robots in education, and again, these physical robots a lot more, but also, again, always promoting these social and soft skills. And at some point, you don't use them anymore, because the children are so, they know growth mindset, because, from elementary school, from grade 1 to grade 6, they learn growth mindset, collaboration, communication. So like in middle school, they don't need it anymore, because they are communicating, they are collaborating, they are doing all of this amazing stuff because they were taught in a really, really good way, that all these things. So they don't need it anymore. That's what you are. And now you can use robots for actually teach content, because in the end, you also need content. I mean, the fact that there's something also I have to say about ChatGPT. Everybody thinks that if ChatGPT knows it, I don't need to know it. We had it with Google, we have it now with ChatGPT, and it's just plain wrong. People
Okay.
need
It's
knowledge.
just plain wrong. I love this.
No, because
People
need
we're gonna get
knowledge in
t-shirts.
their own head. Otherwise, you can't use it. You have knowledge in your own mind to generate new ideas and to think about other things. You need knowledge. You can't just forgo knowledge because someone else knows something. That doesn't work.
Well, last week I met with a researcher, Matt Mata, who specializes, he looks at anti-intellectualism, polarization, political and otherwise. And he said that his one kind of wish for folks is curiosity. And I told him we were going to be talking to you. So I think that, next time when we talk, I would love to have you back. And next time when we talk, I want to discuss more this. I just wrote it down. People need knowledge. We're going to get t-shirts. And I want to discuss how we can continue to grow our knowledge, our quest for it from a young age, from the youngest users of ChatGPT, Claude, whatever out. But I would love to talk about how we can maintain and foster our curiosity in a post-knowledge era. I hate to say it, but maybe we can talk about that next time. Thank you so much for your time. This has been absolutely fascinating. I want to hang out with those two robots, Gigi, and what was the white one's name?
Aiko.
I want to hang out with both of them. I want to know so much more about your work in the other areas that you specialize in. So I'm excited to have a second part 2 with you, Dr. Gordon. And thank you so much for coming on our show today.
Thank you for having me. It was great.
Dr. Gordon, thank you so much for joining us on the Science to People podcast. That was a marathon session in social robots, children, learning, education. I absolutely loved it. We are going to have Dr. Gordon back in a couple of months for a part 2 about quantum curiosity, group dynamics, learning, growth mindset. So super excited to have him join us again. To anybody who found this interesting, please share it with your network. Share it with somebody who loves science and robots and education. We really want to get out Dr. Gordon's work to the masses. Thank you so much. Like, follow, subscribe. We'll see you soon.